What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Ralph Waldo Emerson. There are two kinds of people in this world: those who are carried by their feelings and those who are led by their purpose. Most people do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they are undisciplined. They know what is right, but they do not do it. They know what must change, but they keep postponing it. They know the price of greatness, but they keep spending their energy on comfort. And that is why so many gifted people live ordinary lives. An eagle does not survive by chance. It does not rise by accident. It does not rule the sky because it feels good one morning and decides to fly higher. The eagle lives with design, precision, focus, and control. It disciplines itself for heights that other birds never even attempt. It does not waste its strength fighting every wind. It chooses its battles. It waits, watches, and moves with purpose. And that is where your life begins to change. Because discipline is not punishment. Discipline is power under control. Discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you were created to become. It is the ability to say, my future matters more than my appetite. My calling matters more than my comfort. My purpose matters more than my mood. So when we say, discipline yourself like an eagle, we are not talking about becoming harsh, rigid, or lifeless. We are talking about becoming focused, elevated, and purposeful. We are talking about learning to master yourself so your life can rise above average. This is not just a motivational phrase. It is a law of success. It is a principle of leadership. It is the hidden difference between a dreamer and a builder. And if you understand it, your life will never remain the same. You just heard the truth that changed the whole atmosphere of this message. Discipline is not punishment. It is power under control. And once you understand that, the next question becomes simple and serious. Where does discipline come from? It begins here with identity. Because a person will never live higher than the picture they carry of themselves. An eagle does not wake up confused about what it is. It does not look at the chickens on the ground and say, maybe I should live like them today. It does not measure its worth by the noise below. The eagle knows it was created for height, vision, and strength. That identity governs its behavior. It does not fly low just because low is easy. It does not settle for scraps just because scraps are available. It was born with another standard. And that is exactly where many lives collapse. People lose discipline when they lose sight of who they are. If a person believes he is ordinary, he will tolerate ordinary habits. If a person thinks his life has no calling, he will treat his time like it has no value. If a person sees himself as just a body with desires, he will be ruled by appetite. But when a person understands that his life has purpose, discipline stops being a burden and becomes a responsibility. That is why the greatest battle is often internal. Before you can conquer distraction, you must conquer confusion. Before you can master your habits, you must master your identity. Before you can rise like an eagle, you must first stop living like the ground is your home. History always confirms this truth. Abraham Lincoln was not shaped by comfort. He was shaped by adversity, rejection, and repeated failure. He lost elections, faced public criticism, and endured personal grief. But he never allowed circumstances to define his worth. He remained committed to something higher than temporary disappointment. That is discipline. That is identity. That is a man who knew his calling was bigger than his pain. And the same principle appears in the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That statement is not just philosophy, it is leadership. It tells us that the disciplined life begins when the inner world becomes stronger than the outer noise. An eagle cannot rule the sky if it is ruled by fear. And a human being cannot lead his life if he is led by impulse. So this is why discipline yourself like an eagle is true. Because the disciplined person understands identity before action. Think about how most people live. They rise by emotion, not by conviction. They work only when they feel inspired. They try only when success seems near. They pray for change, but they resist the habits that change requires. That is not a lack of talent. That is a lack of self-definition. People always move according to what they believe they are worth. When Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us," he was pointing to the same hidden law. Greatness begins inside. The eagle does not first look outward to decide how to fly. It looks inward through instinct and design. In the same way, your discipline will never be stable until your identity becomes clear. This means your private life matters. The choices nobody sees matter. The habits you repeat when no one is clapping matter. The words you speak to yourself matter. The standards you keep in secret matter. Because identity is not just what you say about yourself. Identity is what your life consistently obeys. A young man may say, "I want greatness," but if he lives carelessly, greatness is not yet his identity. A young woman may say, "I want a meaningful life," but if she keeps feeding distractions and delaying growth, her words have not yet become her character. The eagle cannot soar while pretending it is something else, and neither can you. That is why discipline begins with a decision. I will live according to my design. I will not lower my standard to match my weakness. I will not excuse what is destroying my future. I will not let my emotions become my master. I will rise to the level of my purpose. And once that decision is made, everything starts to change. You begin to protect your time because you know your life has value. You begin to guard your mind because you know your thoughts shape your destiny. You begin to say no to what weakens you because you know what you are becoming matters. You begin to build habits that support your future because you finally understand who you are. That is the first proof of this message. The eagle lives differently because it knows itself. And when you know yourself, discipline becomes natural, not easy, but natural, not casual, but clear. So the lesson of this chapter is simple. Identity creates discipline. If you know you are called higher, you will live higher. If you know you were made for purpose, you will not waste your life in confusion. If you know you are meant to rise, you will stop living as though the ground is enough. And that is precisely why discipline yourself like an eagle is not just a motivational line. It is a law of greatness. But understanding who you are is only the beginning, because identity without training is just potential. And in the next chapter, we will see why the eagle does not merely know its nature, it prepares for its flight. And now we go one step deeper, because the lesson from the last chapter was clear. Identity creates discipline. If you know who you are, you begin to live differently. But knowing who you are is only the beginning. A man can know he was made for greatness and still remain weak if he refuses training. A person can carry a noble identity and still live an undisciplined life if he never prepares for the demands of that identity. That is why the eagle does not merely know it was made for the sky. It prepares for the sky. It trains in private before it rises in public. It strengthens its wings long before it needs them. It faces resistance before it faces height. And this is where many people fail in life. They want the result, but they resist the process. They want strength, but they avoid strain. They want elevation, but they refuse preparation. But life does not reward desire alone. Life rewards disciplined preparation. That is why so many gifted people remain stuck. They talk like champions, but they live like spectators. They dream of influence, but they neglect the small daily habits that build influence. They admire excellence, but they do not practice it. And when the moment finally comes, they discover that destiny does not answer wishful thinking. Destiny answers training. History proves this again and again. Thomas Edison did not become a symbol of invention because every attempt succeeded. He became a symbol because he kept working through failure, adjustment, and repeated effort. He understood something many people never learn. Progress is not always dramatic, but it is always built. The light bulb was not born in one moment. It was built through discipline, persistence, and relentless refining. That is the eagle's lesson. The wings grow stronger through resistance. And that principle is not only found in invention, it is found in leadership. Winston Churchill became a voice of courage in a dark season. But his strength did not appear out of nowhere. It was shaped by long years of observation, hardship, reading, political struggle, and disciplined thinking. He had the inner weight to speak to a nation because he had already carried weight in private. That is what training does. It prepares a person to carry responsibility. This is exactly why discipline yourself like an eagle is true. The eagle does not wait for the storm to become strong. It becomes strong before the storm arrives. And this is a painful truth because many people love the glory of the flight but hate the discomfort of the preparation. They want the visible success, but they reject the invisible process. They want to be respected, but they will not become reliable. They want to be powerful, but they will not become consistent. Yet discipline is formed in the hidden place, in the ordinary day, in the silent repetition of doing what is right when nobody is clapping. That is why Napoleon Hill said that success requires definite purpose and persistent action. Persistent action means you keep going when it is boring. You keep going when you are tired. You keep going when no one notices. That is not weakness. That is the architecture of greatness. The eagle's strength is not emotional. It is earned. So look at your own life. What are you training for? Are you preparing for the future you claim to want? Are you building the habits that can carry your calling? Are you strengthening the parts of your life that must hold weight when opportunity arrives? Because the future does not ask whether you were inspired. It asks whether you were prepared. This is where discipline becomes deeply personal. Maybe the training for you is waking up earlier so your mind is not owned by laziness. Maybe it is saying no to distractions that steal your focus. Maybe it is reading, praying, planning, exercising, working, or learning with greater consistency. Maybe it is controlling your emotions before they control your choices. Whatever your arena is, the principle remains the same. The eagle trains before the flight, and that training is not punishment, it is protection. It protects your dreams from collapse. It protects your potential from waste. It protects your future from being handed over to impulse. That is why discipline is love in action. It is you saying, "My life is too valuable to leave undeveloped." Jim Rohn captured this truth when he said, "Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but bridges are not crossed by people who merely admire them. They are crossed by people willing to trust the structure. Your habits are that structure. Your repetition is that structure. Your choices are that structure. And if the structure is strong, the flight will be possible. So when you feel the struggle of preparation, do not call it delay. Do not call it failure. Call it training. The wing becomes powerful through resistance. The character of wealth management needs the brave Spilo. Becomes strong through testing. The mind becomes clear through discipline. And the person who learns this secret begins to rise above average. So this is why discipline yourself like an eagle matters. Because the eagle does not become an eagle in the air. It becomes an eagle through preparation. And the same is true for your destiny. You will not rise by accident. You will rise by discipline. And that is the bridge to the next truth. Because once the eagle has been trained, it must still face what every rising life must face. The storm. And now the lesson from the last chapter becomes even more powerful. Because once the eagle has been trained for the sky, it does not stop at preparation. Preparation is only tested when the weather changes. The storm comes, and that is where the real difference is revealed. Many people think the storm is the enemy of progress, but the eagle sees it differently. The storm is not always a threat. Sometimes it is an invitation to rise. That is a lesson most people never learn. They pray for an easier life, but they do not realize that some of the strongest parts of their character are only developed under pressure. The wind that scares other birds becomes the very force the eagle uses to climb higher. It spreads its wings, locks into the current, and ascends. What others resist, the eagle uses. And this is exactly how disciplined people live. They do not waste pain. They do not let hardship become meaningless. They do not allow disappointment to finish them. They turn resistance into elevation. History proves that discipline yourself like an eagle is true, because some of the greatest lives were shaped in storms. Viktor Frankl, after surviving unimaginable suffering in concentration camps, discovered a truth that changed the world. When a person cannot change a situation, he can still change his response. That is not just survival. That is discipline. That is inner mastery. That is the ability to remain governed by purpose when life tries to rule you through pain. Frankl learned that meaning can survive suffering, and that is the eagle's lesson too. The storm does not have to destroy your direction. It can sharpen it. Think of Theodore Roosevelt. He faced sickness, loss, criticism, and personal struggle, yet he remained known for action, courage, and boldness. His famous words, "Do what you can with what you have where you are more than advice. They are a code for disciplined living." The eagle does not wait for perfect weather. It moves with purpose in real conditions. And so must you. That is why the storm matters. It reveals whether your discipline is real or only spoken. Anybody can claim strength when life is calm. Anybody can talk about purpose when things are easy. But the storm asks a deeper question. Will you still rise when it hurts? Will you still obey your calling when you are tired? Will you still act with wisdom when emotions are loud? This is where many people break, because they confuse discomfort with defeat. They assume that difficulty means they are failing, but often difficulty means they are being formed. The eagle does not panic when the wind becomes strong. It knows the wind is not there to stop it. It is there to lift it. And when you understand that, you stop fearing the very things that are teaching you strength. That is why Seneca said, "Difficulty strengthens the mind as labor does the body." He understood that resistance is not always destruction. Sometimes it is development. A soft life often produces a weak character, but a tested life can produce a powerful one. The disciplined person does not run from the storm. He learns from it. So look at your own storms. Maybe it is rejection. Maybe it is delay. Maybe it is financial pressure. Maybe it is disappointment, loneliness, or the pain of starting over. These are not small things. They can weigh heavily on the heart. But if you remain disciplined, they do not get the final word. They become part of your education. And here is the practical truth. The storm will expose what is in you. If you have no discipline, it will reveal panic. If you have no purpose, it will reveal confusion. If you have no inner structure, it will reveal collapse. But if you have learned the discipline of the eagle, the storm will reveal something else entirely: strength, patience, courage, and focus. That is why discipline is so important in daily life. It gives you something solid when feelings become unstable. It helps you keep praying when answers are delayed. It helps you keep working when progress is slow. It helps you stay honorable when temptation is loud. It helps you remain loyal to your vision when others are quitting around you. And this is deeply personal, because every listener knows what it feels like to be in a storm. You know what it means to look around and not understand what God is doing. You know what it means to wonder whether your effort is worth it. You know what it means to be stretched beyond your comfort. But hear this clearly. The eagle does not waste the storm by complaining. It uses the storm to rise higher. So that is why discipline yourself like an eagle is not just a phrase. It is a survival principle, a leadership principle, and a success principle. It teaches you to stop being ruled by resistance and start using the resistance as fuel. A disciplined person says, "This hardship will not make me bitter. It will make me better." A disciplined person says, "This pressure will not steal my purpose. It will refine it." A disciplined person says, "This storm will not ground me. It will lift me." And that is precisely why the eagle remains a symbol of strength. It does not wait for the sky to become easy. It learns how to rise inside the storm. So the lesson of this chapter is simple. Resistance is not always your enemy. Sometimes it is your elevation. History proves that discipline yourself like an eagle. Pain can become power, pressure can become preparation, and storms can become the runway for your next level. And that leads us naturally into the next truth. Because once you understand how to rise through the storm, the next question becomes even deeper. Where are you going when you rise? That is where focus enters. And that is the next part of the journey. And now the lesson from the storm becomes the final turning point of the journey. Because once you understand that resistance can lift you, the next truth is even greater. You must know where you are going when you rise. Strength without direction is wasted strength. Height without purpose is just movement. And that is why the eagle does not merely survive the storm. It uses the storm to stay committed to the sky. This is where discipline reaches its highest expression. The eagle is not scattered. It does not chase every sound. It does not waste energy reacting to everything below. It flies with focus. It locks its vision. It chooses its course. It understands that power without focus becomes noise, but power with focus becomes destiny. That is a lesson many people never learn. They have energy but no direction. They have ambition but no discipline. They have dreams but they are divided. And a divided life can never rise far. That is why the disciplined person must learn to say no. No to distractions. No to small thinking. No to emotional living. No to anything that steals strength from purpose. The eagle knows that if it keeps turning toward every movement, it will never reach its height, so it stays locked on what matters. History proves this again and again. Benjamin Franklin became known not because he lived carelessly, but because he understood the value of order, planning, and self-examination. He believed that a meaningful life was built by habit, not accident. That is eagle thinking, not emotional wandering, not random effort, deliberate focus. And that is exactly why discipline yourself like an eagle is true. The life that rises is the life that knows where to direct its strength. Think also of Aristotle, who taught that excellence is not an event but a habit. That one idea changes everything. It means your future is not built by one dramatic moment, but by repeated focus. One day of discipline means little, but a disciplined life means everything. Eagle does not become powerful by flapping in every direction. It becomes powerful by moving with intention. And that is where leadership enters the picture. A leader cannot be controlled by distractions. A leader must know the mission, protect the mission, and model the mission. That is why great leaders do not merely talk about vision, they live it. Winston Churchill showed this in times of national crisis. His strength was not just in his voice, it was in his resolve. He understood that when people are shaken, leadership must remain clear. The eagle is the same. When the wind is loud, it does not lose its heading. The eagle teaches us that discipline is not a burden, it is a calling. It begins with identity, knowing who you are. It is formed in preparation, training before the spotlight. It is proven in storms, rising through resistance. It is perfected in focus, refusing to scatter your strength. And when all of this comes together, you discover a great truth. The disciplined life is the purposeful life. Ralph Waldo Emerson reminded us that greatness begins within. Napoleon Hill showed that purpose and persistence create success. Viktor Frankl proved that meaning can survive suffering. Jim Rohn taught that discipline connects desire to achievement. Marcus Aurelius showed that the mind can rule its world. And history itself keeps confirming the same lesson. Those who govern themselves can govern their destiny. So now the message is clear. If you want a stronger life, discipline your desires. If you want a higher life, discipline your habits. If you want a clearer life, discipline your focus. If you want a greater life, discipline yourself like an eagle. The moral is simple. Your future will never be bigger than your discipline. So rise above excuses, rise above drift, rise above laziness, delay, and self-sabotage. Train your mind, order your day, protect your purpose. And when the storm comes, do not run from it. Spread your wings and rise. That is why the title of this message is not merely a phrase, it is a law of success. Discipline yourself like an eagle, and your life will learn how to fly.